All right, so here's where we left off after the last video. I think what I'll do is I'm just going to do some, a few advanced little CSS things, maybe introduce some JavaScript to get some interaction going. So we'll start with shading the background of this header here, and then we'll add some of the rhombuses behind these images, and then we'll have them appear as we scroll. And then we'll see how long we'll see how long the video is at that point. So let's start with well, we need the files. So let's start with the files. I'm going to open my, and I will upload these, link them to the video, and upload them for you so that you can follow along. So this is where we left off. I'll just upload these files where we left off. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at this header and shade it. And I'm going to actually open this in Chrome, and I want to show you a few little tricks that I like to do. So one great troubleshooting trick is if you right-click and then click Inspect if you're in Chrome, or if you're in Safari, this should work too, or Firefox, and you click this Select an Element button right here, you can kind of see what the different elements are, and you can highlight them and you can kind of see them in the document flow, which is really helpful. So if I'm going, I want to shade this, I wasn't quite sure which HTML element to shade. I will shade the header class site header. That's what I'm going to shade. And I'm going to just darken it a bit. Let's look at our example site and see what it looks like. Yeah, so it looks like it's darkened a bit with a dark gray or a black overlay. So what I will do is I will go to my color picker, and this is a little trick in CSS3. We can use RGB, and we can use RGB A in the last, I'm not quite sure what the A stands for, but it's the last little bit that allows you to add opacity to a background color. So what I'll do is, since we know that we want to make the background color changed on our site header, we'll go background, and then we'll paste in our RGB code. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the A, and again, I should probably know what this stands for, but I don't. The A stands for, allows you to change the opacity, right? So you can set this value from 0 to 1. 0 being 0%, 1 being 100%. So I'll set this to like maybe 0.8. That's 80% opacity. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Go away. Okay. And then I will save that, and it should shade it. And that looks a little too dark maybe. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, this looks a little lighter. So maybe I'll go 0.7 opacity, and you can, I don't know why it keeps doing this. I just don't want this to keep popping up. Okay, I think that's good. So the other thing is this is only spanning 90% of the page, and that's because we set this at 90%. And I'm sure there was a good reason for that, but I can't remember what it was, so I'll set it back to 100%. And oh yes, it goes past the container fluid. It goes past the container fluid margins. So if we want container fluid to stretch 100% of the width all the way across the screen, because by default it's got these like default margins on the right and the left. So if we look at container fluid, you can see these little green things that are highlighted right on the right side and on the left side. It's because of this default Bootstrap setting where it sets padding right and padding left to 15 pixels. So if we just remove that, that should fix it just fine. So that's perfect. Oh no, but then it adds that horizontal scroll again. Why are you doing that? Oh, I know what we can do. We can. Well, let's figure it out together. Let's go back to our global styles and let's just remove the padding right and the padding left. So we'll set those to 0 instead of 15 pixels each. I keep doing that. I was developing in WordPress earlier today, and it's just habit. Okay, so now we can refresh, and that fixed the margins, but it's this header that's spilling over for some reason. Why is this header spilling over? Maybe we need to... Okay, I paused the video and I troubleshot it for a little bit, and I came across this hack. This is not super great, but it works for now. I put padding left 0, padding right 0 on my container fluid, and I put on my body, HTML and body tags, I put overflow-x, so overflow on the x-axis, and I put that to hidden. So that removes the horizontal scroll. That's a super hacky solution, but we're just going to deal with it or leave it for now. So, okay, we have a nav bar that stays at the top, and it's shaded, which is cool. We can actually see it as we scroll. The other thing we'll do next then is on this actual site that's in development, we've got these rhombus things that appear when you scroll. So that's kind of neat, right? So we can try to add something kind of cool like that to our site. So the first thing we should do is we should probably add these rhombuses. So I'm just going to steal this color, this yellow. Again, this is a app called Color Note, which is real nice. And then I'm going to steal this red. And then we'll add that to my library. So it saves the hex codes for you so you don't have to jump back and forth and keep looking things up. So we're going to do a yellow triangle here and yellow rhombus here and a red rhombus here. Okay, so to do that, if you'll remember from our last video, we used a CSS positioning called absolute positioning. We're going to do the same thing for these rhombuses. So we got to find this section in our HTML document. So we have our header, we have our hero section, we have this first section enabling property management companies to train smarter, not harder, and then we're on to this row here. And this row corresponds with some text and this image. So here's the image, and here is the column. So the column is call MD6, and basically what we want to do is we want to put just like we did with the hero, we want to put a what did we say, yellow rhombus div inside of this column. And basically what we want to do is we want to set this position to absolute, and we want to position it relative to the column. So what we'll do is I'm going to add a class called relative to this column, and I'm going to go into my CSS style sheet, and I'm going to create a new section called rhombuses. I don't think that's probably spelled right, but that's okay. And then we'll style our class relative, and we'll put, anytime we use the class relative, we'll put position relative on it, so that we can position our rhombuses relative to anything that's set, any class that's set to relative. Pokemon Go. So we put the class relative on here, and now we're going to create our rhombus in our CSS. So we'll call up our class, which is a period, and then we'll say yellow rhombus. And essentially, I'm just going to copy all of the styles from our hero rhombus. If you'll remember, that's what this looked like. They're probably pretty much the same thing, but just different colors, right? So we'll copy that down here. And so the only thing we need to change is the color. And so we've got that saved. So I'm going to grab the yellow. And for those of you that are following along, it's F5D14C. We're going to position absolute. We'll put a z index of 1 on our relative as well. And then we will, our transform rotates it into a rhombus. And we're going to remove our positioning for now. So we'll just stick with that, and let's see where it shows up. Perfect. That's so annoying. Okay, so I think what we want to do is we want to move over. So by default, the rhombus lines up. You can't see it because it's behind this image, but lines up at 0 pixels to the left, on the left side of whatever it's positioned relative to. So we kind of want to push it over. Right, so if we look at this example, it's pushed over where it kind of pokes out. And so to do that, we can actually use negative values. So we'll go left negative 100 pixels. So since the width is 300, we'll just move it over about 1/3 of the width of the rhombus. Okay, so now it's poking out a little bit. That's good. And then we can do a couple things. We can do top 50%, and then we have this translate y -50, which will center the rhombus vertically. So let's do that, and that centers it vertically. This is so, I don't know why it's doing this. So it looks great, but it looks like the rhombus is too small. So in our case, it's pretty big. It's poking out at the top, left, and right of behind the image. And in this example, it's just not big enough. So we can do one of two things. We can make the images smaller, or we can make the rhombus bigger, or we can do both. Right now, we'll just make the rhombus bigger, and we'll make it a little bigger, and let's move it out some more. Let's move it out another 20 pixels. So left negative 120 to push it out some more. And what else is going on? I wonder why, how tall is our image? Full width. Let's set a height on our images to 300 pixels to make them a little skinnier. There we go. Now we're looking good. And you can see, oh man, these things get stretched now that we made the image smaller. So what we can do is we can use, and this will only work on modern browsers, it won't actually work on Microsoft Edge. There's a workaround, but we don't have time to go over that right now. But we can put on our image object-fit, and then we can change this to a cover image so that it now it retains the aspect ratio perfectly. Great. Let's see. That's funny that this is getting pushed over the nav bar. So let's, instead of z index -1, let's change this to z index -2 and see if that works. Nope. What's our z index set for our header? Z index 1. Let's see if we can fix fix that. There we go. Perfect. So that's now going behind the header. What's weird is that it's going over the next row, and we will deal with that in a little bit. But so far, so good. So let's add in our orange rhombus to this column. And we'll change, so this is this image down here. And we will change yellow to orange. And we need to, again, put the relative class on this column. So then we should have a, we should be able to just copy this, change this to orange rhombus, and let's grab this background color and let's save it. And then we probably don't want left 120 minus 120. We probably want right minus 120 instead to push it over to the right. Perfect. And that's pushed over way too much, huh? So let's push, let's actually take off the right altogether and let's see where it ends up. Perfect. So let's do right negative 50 pixels maybe. Push it over. Too much? Okay. Negative 20. Too much? 20? Ah, okay. Let's just do right 120 pixels. Okay. Okay. So since we're dealing with a right margin, we don't need to use a negative value. We needed to use a positive value. That's a little confusing. This is still spilling over, and I'm not sure why. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in my HTML. I'm going to try to put that relative class on this column that it's spilling over onto and see, there we go. And since we already had, so this is part of not repeating our code, since we are not repeating ourselves in our code, since we already had a z-index of 1 set on this relative class, I just put that on this column as well. Okay, so we've got our rhombuses showing up. I think I want my rhombuses a little bit smaller because they're a little big. So I'm going to go 350 by 350 instead of 400. And let's see how that looks. Okay, yeah, that looks a little better. And I'm going to move over to Safari because I can't handle the fact that it keeps asking me to translate my site. I'm sure there's a reason why that's happening, some metadata problem. Okay, so we have our rhombuses. Excellent, excellent. Now we need to make them appear. Now we need to make them appear using JavaScript. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to use a JavaScript library called Scroll Reveal. So if we go to the site that we're looking at, and we scroll, we can see that the rhombuses appear as you scroll, which is kind of neat. It gives it a little bit of a animated feeling. And so to do that, I use this already existing jQuery plugin. So it's called Scroll Reveal, and you can find it at scrollrevealjs.org. And I'm just going to use their quick start guide here. So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to add this script, and I'm going to add it to the bottom of my page right after the previous Bootstrap script. So that gives me access to the actual JavaScript library. So if I'm just going to copy and paste that and show you all of the code. So this is all of the JavaScript code that controls all of those different scroll reveal rules. And so doing that doesn't actually do anything. I just linked to the library. That doesn't make the rhombuses appear magically. But it allows us, it gives us now the ability to take an HTML element and add some JavaScript to it using this library, is essentially what's happening. So in the example they have a div or a h1 class called headline. So when you scroll, headline will be revealed. So we have classes called yellow rhombus and orange rhombus, and we'll make those appear as we scroll. Okay. So what I'm going to do is make sure you're doing this after you've linked to the JavaScript library. Has to be after. We're going to do, we're going to open up a script tag called script type text / JavaScript. This is at the very bottom, right before the HTML tag closes. And I'm just going to copy this bit of JavaScript. And instead of revealing headline, I'm going to reveal yellow dash rhombus. I'm going to copy this whole thing again, and I'm going to reveal orange dash rhombus. Or is it red? I can't remember. Yellow, orange, yeah. So basically what this JavaScript is doing is it's calling a function that's written in this JavaScript library that I just showed you. It's calling a function called reveal, and then we are specifying which class to reveal that particular function. So if we even look at reveal, we can see all of the different functions that are written in this JavaScript library. So we don't have to actually write them ourselves, which is wonderful. So if I refresh now and we scroll, you can see that that yellow hasn't yet appeared. I'm going to scroll and it's going to appear. And I'm going to scroll and it's going to appear. Cool. It's as easy as that. So there's different parameters you can set, right? So right now when you scroll once, it only reveals once, but you can set it so that it will reset when it scrolls out of the screen. So there's different parameters that you can do to customize. And I'll just give you an example, right? So we can put reset true on our scroll reveal variable or our scroll reveal function. And so I can, if I just copy this and I put it on, actually I'm just going to copy what's inside the brackets and I'm going to put it here and here. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to scroll. There's no rhombus yet. Bam, rhombus. No rhombus yet. Bam, rhombus. And then I think if we go out of the screen again, it should reset. Cool. Very cool. There's all kinds of other customizations you can do. You can look at this yourself if you'd like. You see, you can delay the how quickly it actually appears. You can do all kinds of cool things with it. There's other, I think there's some other examples, but I don't have time to go over all of them right now. So for now, that's pretty cool. The site went from kind of a boring static site to it's got a little bit of flair now, a little bit of animation. Okay.